The year is 1984, and the country we know as the UK is under the totalitarian rule of the party, under the ideology of INGSOC, short for English Socialism. Britain has been relegated to the status of a province known as Airstrip 1. The party rules one of the three superstates called Oceania. Unlike in our own world, the name covers much more territory, with the United States having amalgamated with the British Empire in the years following World War II. Oceania then expanded further to encompass South America, Southern Africa, Australia and the surrounding lands. Airstrip 1 is but one province of this vast empire, and the third most populous. Within Airstrip 1, the plot is set mostly within London, still referred to as such, but a run-down, dirty place full of antiquated and decaying buildings. Though formerly the capital of an independent UK, London is not the capital of Oceania. Indeed, Oceania has no capital city. Its leader's physical location is never divulged, and the only unifying aspect of the superstate is that English is its lingua franca and Newspeak its official language. This decentralisation, in which each province exists as, in theory, equally important, with its leaders drawn from that area, is a deliberate policy to avoid feelings of colonisation or alienation, which may contribute towards possible revolt and thus an end to the party's dominion. Yet the party and Oceania do not exist alone. Around the same time Oceania emerged, the superstate of Eurasia also came into being, its permanent borders stretching from Portugal to the Bering Strait, as a result of Russia absorbing mainland Europe and much of Asia after the Second World War. The third and smallest of the three superstates, Eastasia, took around another decade to form following this after years of confused fighting, and settled into its permanent borders containing China, Indochina, the Korean Peninsula, as well as the Japanese home islands. Each superstate, as described in 1984's in-universe book, The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism, is effectively a self-contained universe, each population heavily constrained from contacting the others and under the dominion of a totalitarian party. In Oceania, of course, the reigning ideology is INSOC, while in Eurasia it is known as Neo-Bolshevism. Third and finally, a similar party rules in Eastasia under the philosophy of death worship, or more accurately, the ideology of obliteration of the South. Though named differently, however, the essential structure of each is practically indistinguishable. Most of the people within these superstates are proles or non-party members, essentially the crushed and poverty-riven masses who labour and breed to sustain the economic life of each territory. In each, there is a party equivalent, and extrapolating from the book, in which we know the party is divided into an inner and outer party, we can surmise a similar structure exists in both Eurasia and Eastasia. Around 13% of the population of Oceania are outer party members, effectively the skilled or civil servant class, who execute the policies of the directing brains of the state, collectively known as the inner party, comprising just 2% of the population. At the apex of each society and state sits Big Brother or his equivalent. Around each figurehead, a cult of personality is maintained, the book explaining that, quote, Big Brother's function is to act as a focusing point for love, fear and reverence, emotions which are more easily felt towards an individual than towards an organisation. While on the surface this lack of ideological difference may indicate a peaceful coexistence, the truth is anything but. Warfare within the 1984 universe has become continuous and limited. Since each superstate operates under a similar ideological structure, each requires a permanent state of conflict to maintain its party's hegemony indefinitely. An endless state of limited warfare maintains the strict hierarchical structure of each society, while also wasting vast resources and manpower that would otherwise be channeled into areas that improve the general well-being for their populations. Like mutually supporting legs of a tripod, even if desired, each superstate cannot really be conquered even by a combination of the other two. Oceania's core territories are protected by the vast Atlantic Pacific Oceans, while the sheer enormity of the Eurasian landmass makes conquest unlikely. Eastasia too is insulated from such a fate by the sheer size and industriousness of its population. By the year 1984 in the novel, warfare between each superstate has been largely limited to smaller numbers of professional troops and in disputed areas, as represented by a rough quadrilateral area, its corners at Tangier, Brazzaville, Darwin and Hong Kong. Though particular areas within the disputed zone do have valuable resources and vast numbers of effective slaves that periodically change hands between the powers, in truth, each superstate is effectively self-sufficient already. In keeping with the principle of doublethink, the leaders of each state both understand and suppress their understanding that the war is unwinnable, or more accurately, the war is not meant to be won, but maintained to create the war atmosphere necessary to maintain each of these self-contained totalitarian societies. Despite inherently understanding that the war must be maintained, continuous, and so not won, even if this were somehow possible, the members of the inner party are yet the most fanatical members of Oceanian society in their fervent belief that world conquest and the destruction of both opposing superstates is an inevitability. The war thus shifts continuously and has done so for the past 2 decades up to Winston's time, Oceania allying with either Eurasia or Eastasia against the other, waging endless, limited war in the disputed zone, while likely launching rockets into its own territory, or at least allowing such attacks to create the siege mentality conducive to their totalitarian hierarchical societies, and thus affect a maintenance of their power for the sake of exercising that power. So there we have it, the geopolitical map of Orwell's 1984. The 3 major powers are Oceania, Eurasia and Eastasia, with the territory of the disputed zone essentially a necessary and endless crucible of warfare, particular parts changing masters every now and then. If you enjoyed this video, then consider hitting that like button, as well as subscribing and hitting that notification button, so YouTube doesn't commit 1984 lore to the memory hole. Thank you, brothers and sisters, and remember, Big Brother is watching you.